The call came just before dawn, when the city still held its breath and the desert wind hadn't yet begun to scrape dust against concrete. The SEAL team had already been in position for 6 hours, eyes burning behind optics, muscles locked in stillness. Their target, a ghost financier who funded chaos across 3 borders, stood somewhere inside the asset, a centuries-old stone reservoir converted into a cultural archive, its walls irreplaceable, its interior packed with artifacts that would turn to dust if a single round went astray. Rules were ironclad: no direct fire near the structure, no breach, no collateral, capture or neutralize without a mark. And yet, the enemy had wrapped himself in history like armor. The team leader, call sign Atlas, watched the problem grow teeth. Guards rotated too close to the asset's support columns. The target used reflective panels and antique bronze plates as moving shields, a cruel irony, beauty repurposed as protection. Every firing lane Atlas considered ended the same way: unacceptable risk. Even a suppressed shot could crack stone, spall fragments, ripple damage through the archive's fragile interior. The radio stayed quiet longer than anyone liked. When Atlas finally spoke, his voice was flat. "We're pinned by the asset. We need a solution that doesn't touch it." The solution lay a mile away, prone in a shallow depression where the earth dipped just enough to hide a human outline. The sniper's call sign was Vesper, a name chosen because she did her best work when the world was between moments. She had listened without interrupting, letting the problem settle in her mind like a riddle. She knew the archive's stone by reputation: porous limestone, beautiful and brittle. She knew the panels by their gleam: polished bronze, angled to deflect. She knew the city's geometry, how old streets bent light and sound. And she knew something else. Sometimes you didn't aim at the problem. Sometimes you aimed at what the problem relied on. Vesper adjusted her position by inches, not to line up a shot, but to change the conversation between angles. The morning light crept, turning edges into lines and lines into planes. She watched guards shift, watched the target pause near a column that had survived wars and earthquakes alike. Atlas's voice crackled again, restrained urgency leaking through. "We're running out of time. He's moving." "Copy," Vesper replied. She didn't add what she was thinking, that time was not the enemy. Assumptions were. She studied the environment like a map of intentions: stone, metal, glass, shadow. 7 relationships revealed themselves, not targets, but possibilities. She marked them in her head, not with numbers, but with cause and effect. If one thing changed, another would follow. The first shot did not seek flesh. It kissed the edge of a steel maintenance plate half buried in the plaza, far from the archive. The sound was swallowed by the city's mourning, a whisper among pigeons. The impact sent a vibration along a concealed cable the guards had strung for temporary lighting, snapping a clamp. The lights flickered, not out, just enough to draw eyes. Guards shifted, reflexively stepping away from the archive's support columns to clear lines of sight. The second shot took a different path entirely, glancing off a street sign at a calculated angle, a metallic cough that made 2 guards flinch and separate, their practiced spacing disrupted. The sign bent, not broke, swinging to block a reflection that had been shielding the target's movements. Bronze lost its borrowed mirror. The target hesitated, exposed for a heartbeat, not to bullets, but to uncertainty. Vesper breathed, slow and even. The third shot tapped a ceramic tile on a rooftop parapet, sending fragments skittering like startled insects. The noise drew a guard's attention upward, pulling him away from a pressure plate hidden beneath a rug near the archive entrance. Atlas felt it then, the invisible hand easing off the chokehold. He didn't speak. He trusted the pattern. The fourth impact was almost art, a ricochet off a lamppost's curved base, redirected into a sandbag the guards used as a casual barricade. The bag slumped, not collapsing, but sagging, changing the way bodies moved around them. Paths altered, habits broke. The target stepped where he hadn't before, away from stone and history, into a pocket of space Vesper had been building all along. The fifth shot was the quietest, a brush against a window frame across the square. Glass sang, a pure, brief note. The sound carried just enough to pull a guard into the open, clearing the line for Atlas's team to advance without firing. They flowed like ink into water, controlled and precise, boots never touching the archive's skin. By now, the target knew something was wrong. He turned, trying to retreat into the safety of artifacts and walls that could not defend him from what he couldn't see. Vesper's sixth shot struck the ground itself, a precise tap that sent a pebble skidding into a motion sensor's field. The alarm chirped, not a scream, just a question. The guards answered it with movement, all of it wrong. They clustered where they shouldn't, leaving the target briefly alone in a corridor of light. "Window," Vesper said, and Atlas didn't ask which one. The team surged, hands, bodies, intent. The seventh shot came last, not as punctuation, but as a seal. It clipped the edge of a rolling cart's wheel, nudging it just enough to block a doorway the target would have reached in 3 steps. He collided with inconvenience instead of escape, momentum broken, plans unraveled. Hands took him to the ground, zip ties sung, breathing thundered and then slowed. The archive stood untouched, stone unmarked, history unbruised. 7 impacts, none on flesh, none on the asset. The city exhaled. After, as the sun finally claimed the square, Atlas found words. "That was clean," he said, which from him was a sonnet. Vesper packed her kit, movements economical, heart steady. She looked once more at the archive through her optic, checking for scars that weren't there. Clean isn't the goal. Correct is. They extracted without incident. Later, in a debriefing room that smelled of coffee and relief, the footage played back in silence. Angles intersected, not bullets and bodies, but choices and consequences. Someone paused the video on the moment the bronze lost its reflection. Someone else shook their head, smiling despite themselves. 7, a tech murmured. 7 hits, 0 damage. Vesper didn't correct them. Numbers made people comfortable. Stories did the rest. And somewhere in the city, history remained intact, not because no one fired, but because someone understood that sometimes the straightest path was the one that never went near the thing you were trying to protect. For more thrilling, emotional, and unforgettable stories, don't forget to subscribe, hit like, and share with friends who love powerful twists.